Hey everyone, I hope you all are safe and doing good. So, in this lecture, we will see a high level overview of object oriented programming. What is OOP? We say that Java is heavily object oriented programming language, right? And even you have seen we have written our first program. Even just to print a simple hello world or just to print something on the screen, we have written a code and there we have used classes. First, you have to create class, then you can write down code. So without classes, you cannot do anything in Java. So what is basically that class? What is basically meaning of OOP? Why everyone is mad for OOP? OOPS concept in Java, OOPS in C++, OOPS in Python. What's so special in OOPS? So I thought that before actually deep diving into this course, before actually start writing programs, you should have a brief, knowledge of object oriented programming and what is a class, what is an object. Because we write programs and in every program you will face that public class and this kind of thing. So if you know what is proper meaning of that class, why you are using that class, then I think it's good for you rather than just generally in courses this object oriented programming they start this kind of concept later, like first they cover what are variables, keywords, data types, if else, loops and all, and then object oriented programming. Although in detail we will discuss all the OOP features later, all the OOP principles, but classes and objects, these are building blocks of object oriented programming. So even you have to use a class even you are writing a simple program that already we have seen. So you have some idea about these things. That's why I thought that I should discuss these things right now. Then we will go further, right? So this lecture is all about just to give you some idea about what is object oriented programming, what is POP, basically two approaches, POP, OOP, and then classes and objects, and then some OOP pillars we'll discuss. So this lecture just a warning for you. It's just going to be little bit theoretical, not practical. So right. So please stay focused and try to listen as like I'm going to tell you an interesting story here. Then you will get, if you got this lecture, the basic meaning of all these things, then it would be very easy for you to go for higher concepts. Right. So first is, see, you have already heard about that object oriented programming. OOP is a programming paradigm, right? Simple paradigm is what? It's nothing but it's just a method or it's just a model or just a way of looking at something, or it's just a perspective. We generally say that what's your perspective on this? What's your way of looking at this? How you look at this problem? So that is just paradigm, nothing else. Okay, simple. It's a model or pattern for something, or is just a way of viewing or understanding concepts, or it's just, you can say, it's a framework that provides a structure and guidelines for approach. That is simple paradigm. Now, what is programming paradigm? Programming paradigm in computer science, in computer programming, it refers to way of writing code, the style, in which way you write code, in which way you approach problems. That is basically programming paradigm. So fundamental style of computer programming, right? It's just a way of conceptualizing and structuring the code. How you structure your code. Okay. It's just a method. How to write how you write your code. Now there are many programming paradigms. Procedural, functional, object oriented, main I have written, but there are many more paradigms also. Basically, we deal with these two paradigms, POP, procedural, and object oriented, OOP. So, as the name suggests, let me just show you this thing with proper real life example and all. There are two things, two paradigms main, POP, OOP. You come across with these. Procedure oriented programming, object oriented programming. Let's see basically the main difference first. As the name suggests, procedure oriented means basically this type of paradigm, this type of style of writing code focus on procedures. Procedure means the algorithm, how to do the task. It's like a recipe. If I ask you to cook something for me, or to prepare or to make tea for me, then you mainly focus, one way is you mainly focus first how to prepare tea, boil water or add this thing and all, how to do the recipe. Or maybe one other person think that what things would be needed to make tea, like water, tea powder, some spices, these kind of things. That is a different approach. So if you focus on the procedures while writing programs, how to do the task, basically in procedure oriented programming, it is a style where programmers focus how to do the task rather than what to do, how to do procedure or functions. So in POP, C is POP, based on POP, procedure oriented programming. There we write down functions. If you have a small program, there you will get maybe no functions or maybe one function, two function. But when you are working on projects on a large program, then there are many functions are there, right? So basically focus on functions here. So there will be in a program there would be many functions. Function 1, function 2, function 3, like this. There are many functions. And there we have some data as well. So if there is a function like function 1, so this function will having its own local data. I mean the data something like this. Suppose we have a function of addition of two numbers. So there will have two number A and B within that function. So whatever the data we take within that function, that is known as local data. And there is some global data as well. Global data means we declare that data outside of the functions, outside of any function. Anyone can access that data within main or outside of main also we can declare. So suppose there are three or four functions or many functions. Every function is having its own local data. LD means local data, and there is some global data as well. So we have basically three functions here. Let's just clean this and F3. And suppose two global data we have. GD means global data. So these functions have its own local data as well as they can access this global data as well. Right. So this global data can be accessed by these two functions. This global data may be accessed by these three functions. Global data means it can be any variables or anything. So now all the three functions can update this data, can access this data and can update this data. So what do you think? Is there any data security in this approach? No. It's like, it's in your house you have a locker, but everyone can access that locker. Everyone in your house, not just you. Even in your maid, your gardener, or your driver, or your all the relatives and all. So is money safe in that locker? No. Because suppose I have put there 5,000 rupees and someone came and took 2,000 rupees. Because anyone can access this. Now I think that there is 5,000 rupees and I want 4,000 rupees. So I think that let's take 4,000 rupees from here. But now there is only 3,000 rupees because this person has already taken 2,000 rupees. So my money is not safe. Same kind of this approach is there. Your data is not safe. Anyone can update that data. So maybe there is one variable like having value 3 and this function has updated this value to 5. But this function want to use the previous value 3. So if this function want to access, it will see the modified value only because this also can access this data. So main problem in POP is what? This only. Data security. There is no data security or less data security. But now if you are working on projects, if you are solving real world problems, if you are making any application or software for clients, then definitely data security is one of the important aspect. Data is everything nowadays. So data should be secure. If you are making any app or anything, your data should be secure. So this approach is not feasible for developing these kind of application or these projects because of one limitation is this. I hope you got why I'm saying in POP there is no data security. Right. Now, one more thing is there are many functions. Function 1, function 2, function 3, because we are working on a project. and like function 5. Each function is obviously you know, calling each other. So there are so many dependencies. It's not like that there are different functions. This function may be calling this function, this function calling this function. Okay, they are interdependent with each other. So if you want to add one more function, some more functionality if you want to add, that would be a little bit tough. Because if you want to add something, it means there are so many interdependencies. So you have to change some other functions as well. If you want to delete one function, then you have to change some other functions as well because of that dependency in these functions. So you cannot easily add something here. So these kind of, if you follow POP approach, then those kind of projects are not scalable. But obviously some projects or these projects or apps need regular updates, regular, adding of new features. So if you are following this approach, then adding of or scalability of the project would be a very tedious task. But OOP, it's not like that. Okay, so these are mainly two main drawbacks of POP approach. Now let me just show you what is OOP. Now in procedure oriented, I have told you main focus is on how to do the task rather than what to do. Main focus is on functions rather than the data. We don't care more about data. Data can be free floating. But in object oriented programming, see the name suggests object oriented means everything revolves around objects. Objects is the main thing, object. But what is this object? Right? Object is nothing but we can say it's a real world entity. And see, let me show you. I'm just going to tell you a interesting story here. Okay. You just don't think that you are listening or you are just studying OOP concept. You just think that you are listening a interesting story of a movie. Try to understand this. Then you will get everything, the difference between OOP and POP and why OOP is better than POP. Okay, let's just start our story. So in a company, there are two employees, Nancy and Rahul, and they are given a task. Their boss asked to write down a program. See, there is a GUI and we have three shape. One is triangle, circle, and square. So the task is whenever anyone click on the shape would be rotated 360-degree and one AIF sound file would be played specific to that particular shape. Different sounds are specific to these particular shape. These tasks is given to them. Now Nancy started to think this, how to solve this problem. She started to think how to rotate the shape and how to play sound, how to write down the procedure, how to. Focus is on how to do the task. Right. So she wrote two functions. Suppose rotate and just pass like here according to the shape number. She wrote a code to rotate the shape. And then one is play sound. This example I have taken from the book Head First Java, Kathy Serra. The author is Kathy Serra. This is a really good example. Try to understand this. Play sound and here also some code to play sound according to the shape number. What Rahul did is what? Rahul think, what are the things in this? So there is a triangle, there is a circle, there is a square. Rather than thinking how to write down the rotate function, how to do the task, he thought, what are the things here? So triangle and circle and square. So he wrote one class, triangle class. So he wrote three classes. He followed OOP approach. He knows something about OOP, right? So he wrote three classes. One is for triangle, one circle, square, and for each there is two methods: rotate, play sound specific to triangle, rotate, play sound specific to circle, rotate, play sound specific to square. This is the way. Although it has taken more time than this approach, but there are many advantages also for this approach, right? Now the twist came. Now they both want to add something here in these specifications. And he said, just add one more shape, amoeba, something like this. This is amoeba. And whenever you click there, it should be rotated 360-degree and the sound would be played. That is .mp3 sound file. It's not AIF, it's .mp3. For all these three, AIF sound file, and for this .mp3 sound file would be played, that is specific to this amoeba shape. Now he said you modify your program you have written. Now what Nancy will do, because she has written rotate and play sound, so she will have to modify what rotate is same. Okay, she will just pass the number. Suppose number is 1 2 3 4. According to 4, this would be rotated. It's okay, that is fine. This, there should be no change in this rotate, but play sound there would be some change, because if the shape is these three, so here some change would be there. If the shape is not amoeba, obviously this is not a correct code, I'm just a conceptual level, I'm just trying to make you understand. Then it should play .mp3, right? And otherwise it should play what? .aif file, .aif, that AIF file sound. So this function was modified here, right? And this is written in the same program, so this complete program has to be recompiled and tested and again, right? Now what Rahul will do, is there any need to change anything, whatever code is already written and tested? In this case, you pause the video and think, is there any need to change these methods? Because generally we don't call these functions, we call these methods in object oriented programming. Okay, now there is no need to change. Rahul will just add another class, amoeba class, and just write down rotate method and play sound method to this class. So I hope one advantage you got. One advantage is what? If you want to add something here in this approach, then you don't need to change the already tested code. Just add something. Adding of something is really easy. Just create a class and that's it. Okay, it's just a simple example. So here just add a class and that's it. But here see, because everything is in the same program, here we have functions, so this would be changed, this play sound would be changed. Okay, and obviously this is for everyone, for every shape. So this proper, all the program would be recompiled, tested, and again something like this. But here no need to test and change the already written code, already tested code, just add something. So this is what scalability in OOP is there. I hope this is clear to you. Now, again, a twist comes. Now, their boss said, this is not how this amoeba would be rotated. See, what they have done, they have written this rotate method. So, what they have done is the logic. The logic is there is a shape. So, they find out a rectangle around this shape and find out the center of that rectangle, and around the center they rotated this shape. This kind of logic they have implemented, both Rahul and Nancy. But their boss said this is not how this amoeba would be rotated, not from this center point, but there is at one end there is one specific point and this amoeba should be rotated around this point like a clock rotate clockwise. So now what to do? How to implement this? How to change this? Sound method is fine. It's fine. Now what Nancy will do? Will have to change this rotate method as well. Now have to change this rotate method because she has implemented this kind of logic there. And there are some, like these are, we can say, some xy coordinates or xy points. According to these xy points, this should be rotated, not around the center. So what Nancy will do? Nancy will again modify her rotate code, her this function code. Now, if we cannot simply pass the shape number, right? Because if you pass the shape number, then also there would be some problem. You have to pass xy points also. So there's something extra. X and y points has to be passed, and this would be changed here. Like if this shape is not amoeba, then this logic would be implemented. Just find out a rectangle and find out the center of that rectangle and then rotate. But if else, this is amoeba, shape is amoeba, then we are passing whatever you are passing xy. According to these xy points, this shape would be rotated. There is some other logic to rotate this shape. So this rotate function has also been changed. Again, recompiled, tested the code, and this how it works. What Rahul will do, does Rahul have to change anything from these classes, already compiled and tested classes? No. He has to change only this class, amoeba class. Just rotate, just modify something in this rotate function, and that's it. See, it's so easy to change something when you are following this object oriented programming approach. See, because everything is not just bunch of lines of code and mixed. No, here we have written separate classes. We have organized our data, our method properly, like in our almirah. If you put everything, your shirt, your pant, your shoes, as well as some more things at one place only, just a mess up. Then if you want to search something from there, then it would be a little bit hectic, right? And if you have set up everything properly at one shelf, there is your shirt, there is your top, there is your pant, there is your jeans, there is your shoes. Then if you want to put some one more shirt, easily you can put there in that shirt section, right? So there is individual units or shelf for everything, right? So that's more convenient to look and to access anything from there, right? So same type of thing here. The code would be more manageable in structured form if you follow this OOP approach, right? So I hope now to somewhat the idea, the thing is clear to you why OOP is better than POP. But there is something more in the story. It's not end of the movie. Climax is still there. Wait for it. Now, okay, fine. Now Nancy will say there is so much duplicate code here in Rahul's program. In every class, there is rotate, play sound, and rotate, play sound. What's the need of this thing? There is so many because rotate for these three classes, this rotate code of this rotate is same. So why to write in these three classes? Code of play sound is also same for these three. Also for this it's different. Why to write this duplicate code? Then Rahul said, okay, don't worry. There is one more amazing feature in OOP, that is, I'll show you this feature. I'll not tell you the name, I'll show you. Let me just show you. Okay. Now what Rahul will say, okay, don't worry, I have one more feature. I'll make a class that is shape, and there I have rotate and play sound, right? And there are my three classes or four classes, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these are my four classes. I just removed these two from here. And these classes will access or will inherit all the two methods from my shape class. I will not write in each class the code for rotate and play sound. Yes, it is possible with a feature that is inheritance. And same we have inheritance in real life also. We inherit property of our ancestor. We inherit even features and behavior from our parents. Some says that my eyes are like my mother. So I have inherited this feature from my mother. And some behavior also, like maybe your father or your mother is angry and you are also angry, then this is like father like son. So that behavior also you have copied or you have inherited. So same whatever you have in real life, you can easily model those things using object oriented programming concept. That's why we say that in one of my previous videos also I have told you this object oriented approach or this concept, object orientedness in programming, helps you to model the real world problems or real world scenarios in a more natural way in programming. Object oriented programming allows you to, structure your code in a way like same how you interact or how you see in real world, that concept. So in the same way we can model or we can structure our code. So using OOP, we can say we can structure our code in a way that is closely, resembles with how we see and how we interact with real world. That's why we say that in a more natural way we can implement or we can see or we can model real world scenarios using object oriented programming, and that is in front of you. Inheritance is a real world, you know funda, and that we can easily, you can we can say implement with the help of an inheritance feature, that is an OOP feature in programming as well. So see, this is inheritance. You don't need to write these in every class. But there is one more problem here. Okay, this is fine. This will remove all the redundancy and duplicate code. It's like reusing of the code. Reusability is more here, right? Rather than POP. One more advantage is this. But here problem is, now Nancy will say, like Nancy said, okay, that's fine. But this is not how this amoeba will rotate. And this is not how the amoeba will play sound. Because for all these three, they are going to play AIF sound file and this will play .mp3. And this is not how this will rotate. I have told you how this amoeba will rotate. Now what to do? So it's okay. Don't worry. Rahul said we have one more feature also in OOP. That thing also I'll solve. I will resolve this thing also. I will, what I will do, what Rahul will do. Basically, Rahul is very intelligent. Rahul will again define, rotate, and play sound for this amoeba class. Just for this amoeba class. All these three will inherit the same, but this will inherit the same, but we have already redefined these rotate and play sound for particular this amoeba, because these two are different for amoeba class, for amoeba object, for amoeba shape, right? And this feature, this feature is basically comes under polymorphism. This is known as polymorphism in OOP. So there are basically four pillars: abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. So I think inheritance and polymorphism is clear to you. We will see in detail with proper programs and all. This is just a high level overview. Just what are these features and how basically you look at these features, how to implement. Don't worry if you're not getting, we will see proper chapters are there for these things. It's just a high level overview of these things, right? Just to get you familiar with object oriented programming, that's it. Now this comes under polymorphism. Polymorphism means poly means more and this morph means form. Means more than one form. It's like, let's take this example. Like I am one person. So for someone I'm a daughter. For someone like I'm a teacher. I'm a colleague. I'm a friend. So I have many forms. If I'm teaching to my students, for them I'm a teacher. So I will behave according to a teacher. For my mother, I'm a daughter, so I will behave like a daughter with my mother. If with my colleague, or I will behave like as a colleague, my behavior would be different. With my friend, my behavior would be different. So I am one person I am like one object. Object is a real world entity. Anything you see, like me, this stylus or camera, this table, chair, and whatever you see like this, these are objects. So object is a real world entity. That's it. And these objects we can represent in programming also, because we have concept of classes and objects using objects also. In real life, if I am an object, Jenny is an object. In programming also, Jenny, I can create an object, Jenny. In real life, if car is an object, in programming also, in any application or software, I can create a car, an object. So this is how we can model those real world problems with OOP more closely in a natural way. Okay. Now, okay, more than many forms. So I hope you got this concept. How I'm behaving like more than one form, but I'm a single object. Now, according to the person whom I am interacting with, my behavior change. So this is what polymorphism, right? So this particular polymorphism we can achieve here with overloading and overriding. Two concepts are there. These are in deep. We'll not go in that much deep. I'll just tell you an overview of these two things. This polymorphism we can achieve with these two mechanisms, overloading, overriding. So this particular thing, whatever we have done here, whatever Rahul has done here is called overriding. Redefining of the same functions. It's called overriding. We have overridden these two functions. Overloading means whatever argument you pass, according to that, that function will behave differently. Means overloading means here it's not. Let's take a simple example. Suppose I have one function add. There I am passing int x, int y. One more same name add, like void add or void add. Here I am passing int x, int y, int z. So see, name is same, add, but these functions will behave differently according to the number of argument we pass. Or in one case I am passing float x, float y. So only two argument, but type is different. So these are basically three functions. Although the name is same, means the name Jenny is same, but I am behaving differently according to whatever is there in front of me. My mother, my student, my friend or my colleague. So same, this is basically known as overloading. Whatever argument or data you pass here, according to that, this function will behave differently, although the function is same. So this is basically overloading, and this is overriding. Here, everything is same, name as well as there is no we are passing. Here also, name is same, nothing we are passing, but we have redefined these functions. This is overridden. So this is polymorphism. You got what is inheritance and polymorphism in OOPS concept. Now let's come to encapsulation. Now see, here this data, like this is a class. So basically this is known as superclass and these are known as subclasses or derived classes, and this is known as base class in inheritance. We'll see these things later in detail. So we have, this is a single unit. This is a single unit. We have kept the data related to this within this unit only. Like in this amoeba, if you want to rotate, so you have to pass xy 2 points coordinates as well. According to these coordinates, that will the shape will rotate. So here we have, so here we will have two coordinates as well, xy, and according to that, this amoeba will rotate. The xy would be passed here, right? So xy coordinates which are related to this rotate functions are there within this class only. So basically the data, this is known as the data, and the methods. We have bundled or we have wrapped these things in a single unit, that is in a class. Amoeba is a class. So this wrapping or bundling of the data and the methods, the related data and methods, because this rotate method will work on this data xy. So this is related to this method only. This is known as encapsulation. So encapsulation is like, just a class is like encapsulation. Wrapping up of data and method in a single unit is encapsulation. And it is also known as data hiding as well. because this data is private to this class. There are access specifier as well, public, private, protected. We will see these things. If you make this data private, then these are accessed within this class only by these methods, not outside of this class. So we have hid that data. So encapsulation is basically known as, another name is data hiding. You got it? Why data hiding? We can achieve data hiding with access specifiers. Right. Now, what is abstraction? In real life, also, you have seen this thing. Abstraction, like whenever you on the switch, like if I on the switch, then AC would be on or the fan would be on. I only know just you have to switch on, you have to on this switch, and this is for AC. That's it. I don't know what is internal working, how the wiring is to be done, what is happening. Okay, and I don't need to know these details. So the internal details which are unnecessary to me, which are not important to me, those are hidden from me, and I have just a clean interface, just a switch, just on the switch and AC would be on. I just need to know this thing only. This is called abstraction. In real life also we have this kind of thing. Abstraction is everywhere. Whenever you're driving your car, you just know this is your clutch, this is your brake, this is your acceleration, here is your gear, this is your that steering. That's it. You don't know the internal working, how internally all these things are connected, how these are working, what is there in the engine, and what's happened when you press the clutch, what's happened when you press the accelerator behind the scene, what is happening, you don't know, right? And you don't need to know to drive these things. Okay, so this is called abstraction. That's it. Everywhere there is abstraction. So the same thing, abstraction also, this kind of thing also we can achieve in programming. There is an feature, abstraction feature as well, and with the help of abstract classes we can achieve this function, this functionality, right? But about abstract classes we'll see later. Those are in deep. You will not get this thing. But this is how everything which you, every feature or everything which you see in real life, you can model everything in programming using OOP concepts, right? That's why I have told you object oriented programming can easily model real world problems, real world scenarios in a more natural way. That's why. And I have shown you what are the advantages of this. There are only few advantages I have shown you, which are really very simple to make you understand. I haven't gone in that much deep. These are very basic things. And you have seen 2 to 3 advantages. Why OOP is good to write programs rather than just writing lines of code, that's it, in functions and all. Just organize your code, structure your code in classes, objects, and these things. That's why we use class every time we write a simple program only. Then only we write a class. So there are 4 pillars of OOP. I have explained: abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. But there are 2 building blocks for writing programs, that is classes and objects. Now let me just tell you a brief difference between class and object. See, I have told you this is a class, this is a class, this is a class, this is a class. So let's take one example here. Second example, let's take. See, these are not same. Object is different, class is different. Now I have told you object is like a real world entity, like a student, a dog, a car. This is what object, and we can represent this thing. And every object has its own properties. Like I am an object, Jenny is an object. Maybe of a class, human class. I am an object. So I have my own properties. I have my name, I have my location, address, I have my age, I have my like any other attributes, and I have my behavior also. I can teach, I can dance, I can sing. This is my behavior. Means what I can do is my behavior. What I have is my attributes. So there are 2 things when you are dealing with classes and objects. There are two things. When you are going to create a class, you need to understand what type of object this class will make, and what these objects, what I have and what I do. These are 2 things. Every object, there are 2 things. right? So these are attributes like my name, age, and what I do is like maybe can dance, can teach. So these are attributes, my attributes or my properties, and this is my behavior, or we can say methods. These are methods. We show behavior with the help of methods. We show these properties with the help of attributes. These are attributes, or we can say these are instance variables of a class. Let me show this thing. Or let's take one more example. Example of a car. A car will have like its model, its color, number of wheels, and maybe behavior is like can accelerate or get speed, these kind of things. Some behavior is there. So a car is an object which is having some attributes and some behavior. So we wrap up these things in a single unit. So these are called methods, these are called attributes or instance variables. These are also called instance variables. Now, like me, there are many objects like me. Like in my class, there are 60 students. So all these are having their own like name, age, can dance, can teach, or these kind some kind of behavior they have, right? So it's like suppose we have a college management system. Let's take this example. So there we have students who also, teachers also, some courses also. Like a student can enroll in many courses which is offered by some specific department. So suppose a student, Rahul is a student, has enrolled in two courses, Python and Java, specified or offered by department CS. How you will showcase this thing in programming? See, this is the case here. So there we have student, also we have some teachers, also we have courses. So there are many students in my college. Every student is having their own behavior and their own data, right? But we can make a student class. And for student class, there can be like many objects. Rahul, Jia, Jenny, or Payal, many objects. And every student is like having name, ID, age, and suppose enroll, get enroll in any course, or suppose one method is display, simple display of this information. So this is a class, and from this class, what type of object we want to create? Obviously, a student type of object. Student means suppose Rahul is a student, so this student will have its own name. Name is equal to Rahul. ID is equal to suppose 100 or any other ID, or age is equal to suppose 23. And same method, get enroll display. This method will also have one more object we can create. This name is having like Jia. ID is 101. Age is 21. And this method also. Name is equal to for this file. Like this, 4 objects we can create. So every object will have specific name. Name, ID, age, get role, and display. So every object is having its own specific name, age, and ID. Specific. But this is just a blueprint. From this class, like we can create many objects. It's like you can understand it's a map. When you are going to construct something in construction, map is a class. It is just a blueprint to create or to construct buildings, right? So map is just a logical thing, but actual thing is the building. So object is the actual thing which is in memory. In a class, when you define a class and when you take these things, these variables, these are variable declaration, or these are basically specifically, if I say that these are known as instance variables of a class. So when you define a class at this point of time, no memory would be allocated to these things because it's just a blueprint. Like map is just a blueprint. In this map, I have one space for bedroom, hall, some space kitchen, and these kind of thing, bathroom and all. But these are not actual. These are on map only. We cannot touch. No space is allocated to these things. Once you construct a building, then the bedroom, which is having actual the space there. Then we can go to that bedroom, we can touch. So actually, when you are creating these objects, then memory would be allocated, right? This concept we'll see later also. So class is just a blueprint. Actual thing is objects. From one class, we can create many objects. Like one class we can make of teachers. Now, teachers will also, in this class is just a blueprint. Teacher will also having like their own name, age, teacher ID, and courses they teach, and some behavior also can teach, or you can say assign marks to students. This kind of behavior teachers have. So there are many teachers there, like Jenny, Soumya, many teachers. So all those teachers are object of teacher class. Students are object of student class. So when you design a class, you have to think what the object you create of that class will have, what they have, the data or the attributes, and what they can do. It's not like that from a teacher class I can create a student object. No, teacher are having their own attributes and their own behavior. Only a teacher can be an object of teacher class. Courses is a class. Every course is having their own ID, course duration, this kind of thing. So many courses are there like Java, C, C++. So these courses, particular course is an object of this course class. Like this, we need to create multiple classes when we are going to write down when we are going to create a project. Because we want to create many objects. So for that, we need different classes as well. It's not like that just take one class and create all the objects. No, every object will have its own behavior and some properties. So we cannot take something like this. I have told you, we cannot create a student object from this teacher class. No, teachers are having their own behavior or their own attributes. So that's why you have multiple classes, right? So class and objects are different. Class is just a blueprint and it is used to construct objects. Object is the actual thing. Like class is car is a class, but the actual object, a specific car of this model, like Brezza of this model, having this speed, this engine, that is an object. Smartphone is a class, just a blueprint, but particular smartphone, Apple, you can say that iPhone 16 or 14 Pro Max with this processor. That particular thing is an object of smartphone class. OnePlus 9RT or this is particular object. Smartphone phone is just a class. Class is a logical thing. That's it. Right? Objects are main thing. You want to do something, it's not like that just create a class and that's it. No. If you want to do something, you have to create object of that class. Because objects are the thing which are going to contain the actual data. Right? Using objects only we can access these things. Now, how we will access? Let me just show you a simple example. We'll create a simple student class. We'll create object of that class and I'll show you. Right? I hope the basic idea, the basic thing is clear to you. What is OOP? Why OOP? Difference between POP and OOP. What are these OOP pillars and what are classes and objects? Let me just show you this thing with a little bit, with a simple example. So I have opened my IntelliJ IDEA and there the project we have created first project within this SRC. Right now I have two files. So I'm going to create one more file here only. New Java class and Java class name is just student. Student suppose info. So this is class. I have this class, public class student info. In this class, let's take name of the student, then int, roll number of the student, then we have suppose age. Three things we have, right? See, it is showing no uses because we haven't used these things right now. And let's take a method, a simple method display, right? So see, these are data types. I will show you, I'll see these things detail in later videos. What are variables, data types? So string is a data type. Name is just a name of the variable. This variable is containing string type of thing, string type of value. This is of integer type. This is of integer type, right? Now in this method, display is a method, and this is return type. It will not return anything, and method will have these kind of brackets. Within this, I'm just printing something. So I just want to print uh, the name, the student, like student Jenny has ID this, has roll number this. This thing I want to print. So I'll the student, and in Java, if you want to access whatever the name of the student, whatever is this value in this variable, so we just here write down plus. Don't worry, we'll see these things later also. So name plus name, you will fetch the name value, whatever is there in the name. Again plus, then has ID, again plus, and whatever is there in the, sorry, not ID, it's roll number. We have roll number. So has roll number. Let's close this first. These two things I want to access. That's it. I want to print. Now, this class is of no use because we have just created a class. It's just a blueprint. No memory has been assigned to these variables right now because it's like a map. It's not actual building. No uses and no, it's like this. So now what we can see, these are also known as these three. These are also known as attributes of a class, or we can say instance variables. Instance variables. Or we can say like attributes. Or we can say state. These things shown as state of the class, and this method shows behavior of the class. I'm not taking any specific method, just a simple method that just display. Or we can say like get enroll. Okay. So this kind of method we can have in particular class. But how to access to these things? We have to create object of this class to assign memory. So let's take within the same class we are having public static void main, or we just have one more class student main, and here I have method public static void main. So to access these things, you have to create object of this class. If I want to store in name the value, so how to access this name, how to access this roll number, how to access this age, you have to create object of this class. How to create object? There is a method. Just write down the name of the class, student info. Name of the object can be anything, ABC, XYZ, anything, OBJ, equal to new keyword. This is must. New keyword. New keyword will assign memory in heap. Don't go in that much deep. Just think like whatever I'm writing here. We will see all these things in detail. Just a simple example, just to show you how you create a class, how you create objects. And then student info, this is basically known as constructor, default constructor. We'll see what are constructor and all. Don't worry. Now, using object, we can access obj dot name equal to, suppose, Rahul, semicolon. Obj dot and roll number equal to 34, semicolon. Obj dot, whatever the next is, age is equal to 21. Now, we are going to display. So, we'll access this method also. So, let's access obj dot display. That's it. So, it will print the name, the student Rahul has roll number 34. Right. Now, there is one thing. Let's run this. And the public class is not having main. This class is having main, student main. So, let's run this and show you. And obviously, this main is the entry point for JVM. Right. So, you should run this class, student main. Let me just run this and I'll show you. Just click on run. And let's see what you are getting. See, the student Rahul has roll number 34. We haven't given any space, so there is, if you want to make it something, in that more easy to read, then just a space here, here also one space, here also one space. Let's save this and run this. See, now if I show you in my folder, where is this idea project in user? We have this username, idea project, first project, source, and student info. This is the class student info. And in first project, in out, in production, first project, see, we have student info dot class, student main dot class, because here we have two classes, student main, student info. So whatever number of classes you have, those many dot class file would be created. And if you run this in terminal, you have to run that class which is having main. So here student main, this class is having main method, so you have to run this student main class. But we don't have to take care of this thing because IntelliJ IDEA, this is an IDE, it will take care of this thing. It will run this class only. JVM will run this class only, right? So better we take something like this. If you have more than one class, so make one class public, and better to take that class public, better to make that class public which is having main function, because the name of this file would be same as the class which is public class. So if I take this as public class, so the name should be student main.java, and we know student main.java class we have dot student info or student main dot class file we have to run, because that will have main function. So if I make this public, let's save this, it will give error. See, class student main is public, should be declared in a file name student main.java. So the file name should be student main.java. So like this, we can't make more than one class public here. The class which is public should have the same name as the name of the file. So this is one simple example. Don't need to worry about this thing. You will see when we will see more and more code, you will get to know what is class, what are these. We'll see what are variables in next video, what are methods we'll see, how to create object also we'll see. Don't worry. This is just a simple example. I hope you got these things. So I hope you got these things at a very high level, not in detail and at a deep level. We'll see these things in later videos, but the basic idea you have now. What is OOP? How OOP is different from POP? What is class? What is object? Why we create class? What are main features, advantages of OOP? What are main pillars of OOP? That's it. One simple example for you. In the PPT, you will get these things, or in my notes also, you will get all these things. Don't worry. Everything I have discussed here. One simple problem for you is you have to practice this thing. Create a class, which the name of that class is car, which is having some attributes and methods. Attributes are these three attributes: model of that, year, and color of that car. And you have the methods are these three, or maybe not these three. If you just take one method, that is display, and just display the information of this car. What is the model of that car, color of that car, and in which year of that car, or the manufacturing year, or this kind of year a car have, right? So you have to show this information only. If you don't want to include these method, accelerate, brake, or get speed, or if you want to include this method also, you can define this method. You can just define this method like, yeah, there is a brake in the cars and brake has applied, or acceleration has been applied, something like this you can print. That's a simple things. Or get speed, yeah, this is like you can print the speed of this car is this much, kind of. You can just simply print these simple one line statements, or one display. There you can print model, year, and color of this car. So this is one practice problem for you. Like this, you can practice more and more things. You can create a class bank account. There you will have attributes, name, or you can say account holder name. One attribute is account holder name, and a second attribute is balance. One method is show balance, and one method is show details. So this method will display only the balance, and the show detail, this method will display both the account holder name and the balance. Class name is bank account, two attributes or two instance variables, you can say, account holder name and balance, and two methods to show the behavior. Show balance, show details. There you have to show the balance, whatever the balance has, the account holder has, and show detail means you have to show name as well as the balance. Okay, so the name of the account is this, and the balance in this account is this. Something like this you have to print, right? So how you will print, how you assign name value and balance value, you have to think. These are two simple problems for you. So you have to solve these problems. And if you have any doubt in this, on Monday we will have a live class. You can ask your doubts in this live class. I have tried my best to explain all the things with real life examples and with practicals. And one more assignment, yes, for you is I'll give you assignment also. Okay, I'll upload the assignment. You have to give like real life examples of all the object oriented features. One real life example. I'll upload these assignments, don't worry. Right. So now that's it for this video. Now I'll see you in the next video. Till then, bye. Take care.